SCVs go on a journey across the map to build some barracks and to have a laugh.
And it is going to be those proxy racks right in front of Cure's main base. Now, Cure gonna be just throwing up that barracks inside of his own main base. That's singular barracks, but adds on the second refinery a little bit faster.
Yep, second gas is one of the more common builds, right? 17 gas number 2. And this is just going to be safe. Typically, this is going to be all right against a proxy, but of course, so much of it does come down to micro. The worst case scenario here is you go one gas, and then you look to expand. Your SCV scout sees there's no barracks at the other side of the map, so then you can't expand. You got to throw bunkers up and so on. This from Dream is very much so a pressure. Like, yeah, you want to do some damage, but it's in no way all in. You have a lot of plans behind this. You have a way to transition. You would like to get in, do a bit of damage, couple of SCVs, force a bit of a reaction. If he can do that, he'll be happy, and he's mostly just looking to take control of the early game and then sort of make Cure play his game rather than letting Cure be the one to kind of drive the early kind of stages of this.
And I think a really important thing to note also is that it's not just not an all-in, it's also a relatively common thing to see. Both these players are going to have a lot of experience against. This is not some kind of strange, crazy build by any way, shape, or form for either one of these players. So as soon as Cure got into that main base, he knew roughly what he was probably going to be up against. And he's going to try and do some little micro over here. The Reaper versus Reaper war is very, very close. The SCV going to add in a little bit extra DPS. Cure backs off with his own Reaper, and gotta say, oh my god, Dream killing it, literally.
That's so bad for Cure. Obviously, he's just going to be a unit down from where he should be. He's built a Marine, but the problem is a Marine, yes, it builds faster, but it's obviously not as sturdy as a Reaper. It goes down straight away here, and now these SCVs keep on chasing. We need this Hellion to come out. Is that the first Hellion? He didn't even start until just now, so the first Hellion's only just on its way, and this is disastrous for Cure. You cannot lose your first Reaper as easily as he did. There's a Reaper over here dealing damage as well, and Cure is down 6 SCVs, and Dream has found a wonderful start, and he's got a Reaper count against a unit count of his opponent that probably still can't defend. One Hellion ain't going to make the difference here, and you can see he's up, he's fighting, he's ready to keep this going. A lot more SCVs going down. Mining time continues to be lost. What a start for Dream.
An absolute disaster right now. Finally, one of the Reapers ends up falling over here. The Reaper's going to be forced to back off. Can we take a look? Yes, the income advantage. It's not just the 11 workers lost, it's also the mining time of all of those SCVs. I think more than half the mineral line of Cure has not been mining for almost the entirety of this game.
Yeah, 2 Hellions are going to help to really make this a better defense than it was before, but even then they will struggle if enough Reapers get out and they start shooting at the right time. So something for Cure to be careful about. As you do just see a tech lab going down on the front. Obviously, you can see how much trouble Cure is in. He can't afford an expansion. He can't afford a starport. These are all sacrifices he's making and leads in which Dream is just developing over these next few moments.
This is a really tough spot. Now, the tech lab is built on the barracks and going to be swapped over to that factory that's going to enable Cure to start building some of those meatier, beefier units like the Cyclone to help deal with things like these Reapers. Reapers going to have to make their slow journey across the map and try to evade as many of these Hellion attacks as possible. And using those Reaper grenades does actually a pretty good job of getting out of there alive with most of those units, which also means that the natural expansion for Dream also going to be a little bit easier to defend.
Yep, and that should, I mean, he's just in a great spot, right? Like, you know, obviously Cure couldn't feel as though he could be able to cross the map, right? What's he got to go across with? And even if he starts to, the Cyclone's going to be here. He's just going to be in such a great spot, Dream, defensively. Yeah, he's going to see this now. The Hellions do move out. They get a great first shot. If there's going to be a way to get across, it will start like that. Cyclone gets a lock on, is going to get rid of one Hellion. And oh no, he gets locked on too, but he should be able to break with the high ground. Vision, no, just not there in time. Mistake from Dream, the Reapers. It was fine for them to stay there, but they couldn't take that first shot for free, all clumped up. And then obviously the Cyclone going down is actually a problem. Now Cure can go across the map perhaps, and maybe you'll find something for it.
He might actually find more than I think Dream was wanting to let him get, just because of the fact that the barracks, of course, had to fly all the way back home. So yes, there were the Cyclones being produced, but losing the Cyclone and all of the barracks units that you would have had means that there's almost nothing back at home. There's that single Cyclone that just popped out, and now the Raven. It does seem like it's going to be enough, and this is a very cheeky maneuver. Lands the proxy barracks and tries to make a Marine, which I think the hope there was that you cancel the SCV building the command center on that low ground. Doesn't quite work out, but I like that he's willing to do stuff like that.
It's just a bit of a shame that Dream gave up the map control, because he could have very easily still just been on the map and had no issues at all. Not that it's really turned into anything. He still sits up by 8 workers in this game. He's catching back up in army supply. A third CC is building for him while his opponent's trying to get an orbital online on the natural. Yeah, he'll lose 1 barracks, but this was very much so to scout, of course. And yeah, of course, you also see just how late the starport is from Q. It just now finished. Dream's already got a Raven on the map. His second is about to pop. I mean, the advantages just keep on accruing here from Dream. It is... It's really tough for Q. Like, this is the sort of game where now you've just got to play it slow, play from behind, but so much of it feels as though you've got to have Dream make a mistake. And yes, you can force mistakes to some extent, but Dream's about to have like a supply explosion very soon. After this third CC, we get extra barracks, and then he's going to be like 20-ish army supply ahead pretty much always. And he's going to have more Raven energy. So how do you then, as Q, force Dream to make mistakes because your army doesn't feel good enough? And if Dream just takes a few precautions and makes sure he doesn't get like Doom dropped or anything, then it really feels like Cure is just going to have to sit back and wait for Dream to make mistakes by attacking into him. And I mean, it just doesn't feel good, right? Like, you don't feel like you've got any control in the game right now as Cure, basically.
And I really do like, given the fact that Cure is in such a tough spot, that he is just opting to say, I'm going to try and use information as one of the tools at my disposal. I have some of the Marines, and yes, I really cannot afford to lose too many of them. But if I have spotters and I can identify an angle that you come in from, once you have all those Ravens, once you have all of that spur of production that you were just talking about, and that attack that we expect may eventually end up coming here from Dream once he feels confident and safe that he can try and do something. If you can identify the exact angle, catch it on siege, find these opportunities, that is the way that you can come back in TVT. And I think that is both the blessing and the curse of the matchup.
Yeah, I mean, TVT is a weird one in that regard. Oh, this is going to be bad. You just can't afford to lose a tank, right? I mean, what do you even do there? If you pull the SCVs towards it, they're going to get hurt. They pull to the corner. There's so many low HP SCVs from earlier. I mean, my goodness, 4 workers and a siege tank make it 5. We're going to start dropping turrets in the natural. And you can do this because you're just in such a safe position. You don't need to keep the Ravens at home. Obviously, don't lose the Ravens or anything, but this just extends your lead, and Dream is in such a great spot in this game 1. Yeah, I mean, it's just crazy what a bit of early momentum can do. And in a best-of-3 scenario like this, I mean, it's dangerous. You get a 1-map lead, and then Kira is really on the ropes for the rest of the series as something just happened on Kira's camera, and he's going to drop the pause. So a few moments here as we have this first game of our best-of-3 series, our final match that we're going to be shown here on Group A on the mainstream. And of course, such an important one. One of these players goes home, one of them goes to the playoffs.
Nice and simple, just straight up. One of the players is going to get to advance, and we know the other one is not going to be able to. So it is a tough one, and I feel like this is already, again, we've been saying it's a tough start for Cure, but it is one of those things, like you were saying, it's a snowball effect, right? After you take the economic damage, you have fewer tools available, so even just the follow-up harassment of the Raven harass and everything, it's harder to defend against. It's not just, oh no, look, there's more mistakes being made, it's, oh, you just didn't have the tools available anymore to defend against this, so you get even further behind. And I have to compliment that. I think Cure doing a great, or sorry, Dream doing a great job with the situation, all things considered.
Mr. Admin Man getting one with the camera. You know, one of the things I find funny is it's so nice to be able to say the players will go home if they lose again. You know, because for the last 2 years we've been making the joke, they go home, but they're already there. This time they can actually go home.
Yeah. The players will leave their home office if they lose this match.
The players will turn their monitor off and
the players will go to Netflix.
They will close. They will close that browser tab and go to the next one.
The players will Alt F4 and head over to Netflix, start binge watching some comedy show, cheer up their mood.
Yeah. All right, just a few moments here as we're going to get this resumed very shortly. Just getting QS sorted out. I think it was just his camera fell down or something and probably knocked his desk or so. So a few moments, obviously not ideal. In fact, that is exactly what happened. So his camera fell down. He was microing so hardcore. He shook the earth so much. His camera couldn't cope.
Shook the core of the event. Just nothing really could stay stable against the pressure that this man puts on.
It's like when we say this micro is going to rock your world. It really did. Yeah, I mean, he needs to get out of the hole that he's in. 30 supply down. You know, I was talking about that kind of explosion stage of the game, right? The supplies seem close despite what happened early. But this is where we're at now. It's like a 24 worker difference. The army supply lead is there as well. It just gets worse and worse for Kira. And again, you've got no choice other than to sit back, hang around, wait for Dream to mess up attacking into you in a game that just doesn't feel good because you don't have control over that.
Yeah, and I mean, even just these kind of pauses and stuff can make things feel even tougher just because it's basically being elongated your potential demise, right? It's the noose being hung around you and you're waiting. You're just waiting for an opportunity to do something about it. But it does seem like the game is about to resume. We're hopping back into it, and thankfully there's not a whole lot immediately happening. There's no action or micro moments that are happening, and either of these players are going to be interfered with so they can get back to their usual business of what they were planning to do. And for Cure, that's mostly just trying to bounce back from the auto turret harassment he took right before the pause happened.
A Cyclone SCV's a tank, I mean, it is just brutal, right? And yeah, I mean, you can just go on and on, but we've kind of said it all. The upgrades, if you want to add something else to the list, 1-1 done versus engineering base, sorry, 1-1 halfway done versus engineering base starting. Yeah, across the board, this is looking like a great start for Dream. This looks kind of like where you want to be at. And like I say, best of 3 with your tournament life on the line. It's nice to get a 1-0 lead.
Yeah.
It'd be kind of crazy if Q got knocked out. I do think Dream is really good. I think Dream can make playoffs, but I mean, obviously we're going to say there's a bunch in these groups, right? You've got players that deserve the playoffs, but there's like 4 of them in a group, right? And then someone has to leave, and I just feel like Q is the one that can make a good run, you know? It feels like he can go really far. It feels like he overcame that kind of offline factor. I remember the last time we had him here in Poland, we were talking a lot about him, like, you know, he's the hot new Terran right now, how's he going to do? And it's again that kind of, oh, he's great online, but not so great offline. Well, that's not true anymore, right? He's shown that he can be great offline. He's been at that GSL championship, and he's taken the win. So it would be really shocking if he does fall here, but obviously going to be an uphill battle because he's down basically 1 map already. We're waiting for Dream to dot the I's, cross the T's. We'll see if he can do it with this push.
I mean, it is promising for me at least to see that Dream is in fact playing a next level compared to the past, and he is already turning this series in terms of the predictions around the score and history and everything. So as we see the massive army of Dream nearly doubling the supply of Cure's army, pummeling on forward, the siege tanks get ready to move into position. Cure is all sieged up. He is in the best possible spot he could be to help try and defend this, outside of the fact that that refinery is going to be a bit exposed. And Dream just going to try and find a little opening over here that's going to make things even more complicated for Cure if it wasn't tough enough already for him.
Yep, I mean, because he's got the supply lead, right? He can just bully his way into whatever position. He didn't even have to bully his way to this position. He just dropped across. And he does start to lose out on his Ravens a little bit, so that's not ideal. But yeah, I mean, he's getting enough done, right? You force a lift on the natural. You're just putting damage onto Cure that he's, again, not going to really be able to recover from. As long as every so often you just check in and say, hey, you're still behind, right? Then he's pretty much going to be fine. Dream behind this, taking a 4th base, putting that in position. No issues at all, so yeah, just looking good across the board here for Dream. I mean, we've said it once, we've said it twice. Dream really does have this game in his hands, and you know, Cure right now, if he wanted to win this, was basically hoping that Dream would try and drop in. He loses everything before it sieges, for example, and then maybe he gets a bust on the other tanks, with it being like half the army, long reinforcement distance, and maybe then, right, that's the momentum he needs to get a 4th base, go across the map, deal some damage, deny a base, right? You know, any of those opportunities just, that didn't happen. Dream walked across the map, dropped in the natural, and we were good to go.
Yep, this is definitely one of those matchups where positional play can sometimes overcome massive army deficits, but this was not one of the situations where Dream really allowed for it. He was still pretty methodical about it. He didn't really trade out super poorly to get into the position that he got into. And like you said, with a 4th base and everything behind this, now he's actually getting into a position where he's now seizing air superiority, which makes it even tougher because, well, that last Raven is going to have a very hard time getting a whole lot done. And I wouldn't even be surprised if Dream just starts pincering in from the other side just to complicate matters even more for Cure.
Yeah, I mean, he really could. He already had a little bit of an attack up that ramp before, and it didn't go too well. It was like okay, but he's just going to dive in over here. He's obviously just going to come through. Cure's not going to stick around all too long. He's going to type out the GG, and Dream is going to take the first map here, and he's 1 map away from Intel Extreme Masters Katowice playoff spot.
Killer job, and again, it's just such a stellar start in the group, being able to start up 2-0. I think really surprising a lot of people. Now again, being up 1-0 against the player that he normally loses to, especially lately, especially in situations where it's usually a 2-0 or something. So it's going to be a bit of a question. That first game, we all have, I mean, we've talked a lot about how far ahead Dream was. But remember, all of that was off the back of a very small moment, right? That was all off the back of one Reaper versus one Reaper. Everything began with one Reaper dying.
Which is crazy, but that is actually TVT sometimes. I can tell you a lot of games I've played where I lose my first Reaper, and then trust me, I'm really good at losing my first Reaper. A lot of games I've played where you lose that first Reaper and you just can't do anything, right? And it's the same here on this level when they can both micro so well. Losing that one Reaper just takes away what could have been a slowing down of so many SCVs, and then it is a pressure rather than something that's doing so much damage that you can't recover from it. It is a completely different game, basically.
Yeah, I think it's just important to note that I still actually look at this series, and I actually still favor Cure. I think he is still, despite being 0-1, despite the fact that the past 10 minutes we've been talking about how far ahead Dream is, how well he's doing and everything, I still think if most people will look at this series that they know Cure and Dream, I think they would still say, yeah, I actually think that I would still probably place my bet on Cure still be able to come out on top. So I think Dream getting some momentum is big. He's going to be feeling better about himself after that win where he was able to kind of indulge in that winning position for a while. And now he gets to move into game 2 with a little bit of confidence and a little bit of leeway behind him as well.
Absolutely. Definitely nice to see. I'm just seeing if there's any scores coming through on the bottom side of the screen, but there is not. Just thought, oh, there we go. Actually, Solo 1-0 versus Neeb and Rogue 1-0 versus Spirit. So maybe nothing too surprising there on the other streams, which of course you can check out if you would like to. Obviously, Dream 1-0 here against Cure and readying up for a game at number 2. Waiting to see just what we maybe do. Depending on the map, you know, I know Dream likes to mech a little bit. I know he's been doing a bit in TVZ, but in TVT as well. I said this about you, Thermal. Sometimes he's a bit of a mech player, and Dream is kind of that guy as well. Be a little bit weird, be a little bit different. Could be interesting. Depending on what the map is, of course. Some maps will be a bit better for it. Some maps a little bit worse, quite frankly. So
yeah. I think that's entirely fair. I know that we did talk a lot about, you know, who is going to advance on from this match in particular, who the winner of this is just going to advance on. It is worth mentioning that the other two players in the group, who we pretty much know are going to be advancing on now, Solar and Rogue, both sitting 3-1 in their series score, both sitting at the same overall map differential as well. And it's important to note that the winner of the group, whoever gets first place in the group, doesn't just go to the playoffs. They go to the playoffs in the round of 8. Everyone else is going to be going to the round of 12, and what that means is you effectively skip a round. And we're not talking about skipping a round versus, like, I don't know, someone Wardy in an open bracket or something, or myself in an open bracket. We're talking about skipping a round against a potential player like a Cyril, like a Rainer, like a Maru. This is so valuable to be able to top your group. So if you are interested, while this series, we're starting to get the game number 2 underway, I'd highly recommend checking out also Katz's stream, who's also streaming with some of these matches, as well as the ESL_SC2B stream.
Absolutely. Again, Solo 2-0s, he's top of the group. If you 2-1s, you can get top of the group if Rogue also goes 2-1s. That's the timeline there in terms of how things could turn out. Again, these two are just straight up scrapping for getting ahead in the group and obviously just advancing. But actually worth mentioning that while right now these two are obviously in, you know, position where the winner advances, they could still advance in second place if whoever, you know, one of Rogue or Solo lose, they could get second place. Don't know how much of a difference that really makes. Everyone's freaking good in the round of 12 anyway, you know. That
is very true. It's hard to get a good seed in the sense that you have an opponent that you're like, yeah, thank God I got such and such person.
Can you imagine? I mean, he gets second place in another group. It's like, oh, thank goodness I got Cure or Dream, right? Like, yeah, it doesn't really work like that.
Aye. Well, we're getting ahead of ourselves as we are still just finishing up this series right here. I'm starting in game number 2, down here on the bottom right-hand side of the map on top of the red Terran player from Dragon Phoenix Gaming. He is Cure.
In the upper left-hand side from Good Game Gaming, some say he is a good gamer. It is Dream.
I think it's hard to argue with after that last game.
And last game, his opponent good gamed him at the end as well, I mean.
The good game actually comes from his opponents, that's true. He is the gamer that causes good games.
There's a C in there. Causes.
Oh.
You've ruined it, Pietro.
I was very
You know what?
confused.
It's okay. I'll let you off. No SCVs going across the map super early. This SCV moving now obviously is just a scout, and that's Kua being very safe. Double gas and a scout is what he did last game. And that is, again, kind of safe because usually with double gas, you kind of feel good to hold most things because you believe in your micro. Yeah, obviously last game he messed up the micro, lost the Reaper. But this is really just him saying, I think if I just make sure I know exactly what's going on, give myself the best info possible, I'm confident later on. Whereas Dream is more willing to cut corners. He does take double gas as well, but he doesn't scout because he just believes I'll be okay, and maybe that little bit of corner cutting, not scouting with an SCV, bit of extra eco, it's just slightly better for me.
And given the fact that he is up 1-0, I don't hate that decision as well. Willing to just try and potentially get little advantages wherever he can, cutting some corners. I do want to bring up the map because Pride of Altaris is an unordinary map, and we oftentimes see it vetoed and everything. But frankly, Wardy, TVT I think is not the matchup I usually think of on this map. So break it down for us. What do you usually expect when you see a TVT on Pride of Altaris?
Well, it's just a big map, right? So you expect it to be split, you expect a lot of time to respond, and you expect maybe a left versus right dynamic in terms of one player pushes this way, one player pushes that way. I think the reason this map comes up in this series, following up Glitter and Ashes, it's very simply they just want to play big maps. The smaller the map in TVT, the more volatile it is, because if you're not ready for the push out or you don't see him coming and you get sieged in your base, you're in trouble. So this gives you the most possible time to see this and to react. It's a bit bigger, so drops and stuff are a little bit more, possible to go around, but obviously you can also, later in the game, have those sensor towers, you see the drops. This is very much so just a case of removing the volatility early game. They both want to play a longer game, it would generally seem to say, letting these two maps come through. And yeah, on this map specifically, one of the interesting things, the one thing that this map did that no other map had done in the ladder before is it has 4 different layers, right? So you've got the low ground in the middle of the map, then your next layer up, it comes into the 3rd and 4th base, then a layer up into the natural, and a layer up into the main. And one of the coolest things that actually does to a map is that it means that every base is up a high ground. So not just is your main more defendable, your natural's more defendable, but then also your 3rd and 4th is more defendable. So everything about this map encourages a longer game.
And I really love that you bring that up just because that is one of the newer map features. It was physically impossible in some of the previous maps until there was a update that actually allowed that.
Yeah, our last editor update allowed it, and they straight away said, yeah, make some maps like last time we had a map contest, which is where Pride of Altaris came from. They were like, oh yeah, make some maps like this. And it you know what's cool? It worked so well that now it's just allowed as a standard feature. It's not like special or anything like that. It's just allowed, and it does work well unless you put like 17 cliffs next to each other, then it's a bit ridiculous. But on maps like this, you don't really notice until you're like, oh yeah, 4 layers, it just seems so natural, which is really cool.
And we definitely know that sometimes a high ground vision and a high ground situation can matter a lot when it comes to the TVT trades, the engagements, the siege tank positioning and whatnot, and even just some of the early game skirmishes. But funny enough, neither of these players, as we're seeing from a wonderful observer, have really gone out very far into the map. They really have just been keeping to their own side for the most part. A little bit of movement out there from Cure, but both of these players staying very, very close to the chest with their units.
Yeah, with the size of the map, it almost feels like you get medevac aggression going. These builds are so tight in TVT, you're looking to hit when like something is halfway done, but on this map, it would basically be finished already by the time you get there, so no surprise that they were basically mirroring each other and just going into a very strong macro game. And that setup, 3rd CC starts a little faster from Dream. He's just been a little bit ahead throughout, and that's just not SCV scout, and that's one of the main things, and just those little edges, right? So he's maybe just been that little bit greedier, and now he's taking some leads. Now, Q is still not building a 3rd CC. He really says he's going to go across and try and do something. We'll see if he can find some openings, and if he can, brilliant, but if not, he's in a bit of trouble because that 3rd is so much faster from Dream. So we'll see what Kyo can do. Starting to push out right now. I would imagine he'll take a 3rd on location as he moves out, at least.
I think that would make a lot of sense. And we did see, just for a brief moment, Dream spots out the army positioning over here at the 3rd base. I think he would have seen where the 3rd base would have been planted down. So if nothing else, Dream saw that the 3rd base had not been started on location immediately. He's going to poke back in and seize that command center and gets all the information he really needed from those Reapers. They really did their job. Yeah,
nice just to get confirmation of that. He says, hey, look, you're not moving out. I'm going to send my Ravens out, If your army is just right there, do you not need them defensively? Let's make use of that energy. We saw how much he was able to do with that last time around. See if he can do it again. There's still potential for Q to attack that later third, you know, and he's also not invested into engineering bays or extra racks yet like Dream has. So he's still been building more army, and that's where the army advantage is from. And so it's a little dangerous because what happens, obviously, as we Matrix Cyclone to stay safe, we will auto-turret the natural. It just means that Q has a bit of army supply lead that he can go across the map with. But again, if he doesn't do anything, Dream is just setting up to have a really great game from like the 8 or 9 minute mark. This is the push from Q that needs to find something to slow Dream down a little bit.
And a little bit funny because the Ravens have now used a good chunk, if not all of their energy, doing that little harassment. And one of the harassment attacks really didn't accomplish almost anything. So now the Raven has to find a way back home safely, as it's going to be moving potentially straight over the army very soon. The Raven actually ends up hold positioning over there because the army is going to just break out to a fight over here. Cure seizing an opportunity, interfering, matrixing the siege tanks, taking out the rest of these units. What has Dream really got right now?
No, nothing. He really didn't know what was happening. Kyo took the very long way around with his units, took a bit of an odd path, and so Dream just never saw it coming. He really believed Kyo was just going to sit back and defend his third base. He was not ready for this attack at all. This was the moment in which Kyo had to deal damage. Dream has upgrades almost finishing and barracks producing add-ons. 2 minutes from now, Dream's in an amazing spot, but that was the moment for Kira, and it was just, especially with Dream not knowing it was coming, on top of everything Dream was building, just way too much, and that's why it's such a one-sided fight.
TBT, man, it is a brutal matchup. I mean, we've seen two brutal losses in a sense, where that first game we were talking about the single Reaper that just snowballs into all of these cascading effects of things that go wrong from that. And in the second game, a game where it looks like both these players situating very similarly, one small difference with the third base timing and everything. But imagine if we had a player who was ready to defend with also potentially even some Raven energy if their Ravens are back at home. Small decisions that can cost you the game like that. TBT, I feel like one of the most brutal matchups for that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think Dream got a bit ahead of himself. I think if he's just playing kind of a bit more army focused himself, he could maybe justify sending those Ravens out. But he sort of he went for everything. It wasn't just sending the Ravens out, it was engineering base and the barracks. He set up for the future, and he sent the Ravens out to try and deal damage. And that was just looking for a little bit too much. And obviously, like we said, Cure defended it well. He didn't take much damage. Even if he lost like 6, 7, 8 SCVs there, it doesn't change the attack that hits Dream. You know, Kier probably still wins the game in the same way. So it just kind of goes to show how meaningless the Ravens were in basically going to harass versus if they'd been at home to defend, it could have made a difference, right? It could have been a hold, maybe not.
Yeah.
You know, if Dream still didn't know what was coming, the Ravens probably don't make enough of a difference, but it would have given you a much better shot. And obviously, if you then knew what was coming, having the Ravens at home would have been really important to the defense.
Well, that is going to be something to soak on in as we think about where map number 3 will lead us. You were mentioning earlier, Wardy, also that the maps that we've been seeing so far are some of the bigger maps. And I think as we start moving away from those larger maps, the game does become a little bit more volatile with those kind of positional move-outs. And it's kind of funny that we were talking about that because, in a sense, the same kind of fear that we just had on like smaller maps effectively was realized on a larger map there, where there's a move out and you're not aware of it and it catches you very suddenly by surprise.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Let's go into Berlingrad, talk about small maps. This really is the polar opposite of what we've just been seeing in the bottom right. Tying it up 1-1, our Red Terran player with the deadly attack last time around is Cure.
And up here in the top left-hand side of the map, our blue Terran player from Good Game Gaming, living it up. He is Dream.
Yeah, this map should be super different. Right from the very start, we should see, I would be surprised if one player didn't go medevac. You know, if we didn't see any medevac opening for a bit of a fight at the start, we might even see, obviously, a bit more Reaper Hellion opening, try and get across the map early and put some pressure on. You just arrive at such a faster pace, and there are positions outside of the main you can siege up, hit depots from, and so on. You know, you just get into those positions also so easily on this map. So we'll be very surprised if we don't see a little bit of pressure from these guys early, and obviously they're going to play like that as well. And this game, I don't mind Cure scouting again, right? Just make sure you know exactly what's going on super early. Like I say, Dream can get away with it. It's just, again, it's cutting corners. Hopefully this is one of the only corners he cuts, because you just can't cut this, you know, as many as he did last time.
Yes, especially when it comes to just making sure you have an idea of what your opponent's going to be up to when they move into the mid-game stages. Now, going for the SC or lack of SCV scout, not gonna have to worry about like the proxy racks or like a 2 racks Reaper kind of play or anything else like that coming out of Cure. It's just gonna be that good old 1-1-1 setup. So we are seeing mostly mirrored builds, which, like you were saying, I think is gonna be more or less par for the course for the moment.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's gonna be fun to see where the differences come from, right? As you see a reactor straight away now from Cure. So that's an earlier reactor than what Dream is going for, and so Cure's already been a little bit greedy himself. One Reaper gets that reactor going. You can't lose the Reaper, right? And that's going to be a big thing. Obviously, nowadays in TVT, it's very rare someone sends their Reaper across the map aggressively because it can just go so wrong so quickly. You don't know where your opponent's Reaper is. But yeah, while Dream will have a faster second Reaper, Cure will then get to the reactor, get a couple Marines out, might even go into reacted Reapers, and if he does that, he's going to have a lot of Reapers and a lot of Hellions very quickly, and that could really turn into a lot of pressure.
Yeah, especially the early game pressure, which, well, as we know, can end games if you are able to take a nice micro advantage there. But for now, Dream going to be moving across with his couple of Reapers, and looks like he will be the first one to really actually do any kind of poking and prodding over here. It's going to be 2 Reapers versus a Reaper and a Hellion with some good micro over here. That Hellion's going to be able to get some juicy splash damage shots off, picks off one of the Reapers. A really solid engagement there for Cure.
I like that. I also like from Dream, though, that he's gone straight to a Cyclone. It feels like if he was going to play Reaper Hellion, he'd be playing from a bit behind. It is rough now losing the Reapers, because what that means is his Cyclone's going to be kind of on its own. With enough Reapers, they will kill that Cyclone. So that's what I'm worried about now from Dream.
2 at a time.
Otherwise, I kind of liked it before. Yeah, we're at 3 Reapers, 2 Hellions. I liked it if the Reapers were here with the Cyclone. I think then going Cyclone straight away is good. Now I'm not so sure, because the Cyclone can lock on and run away, but the Reapers can chase and get into range and fight. So we'll see what exactly Cure decides to do with his extra Reapers finishing up. If he's ever going to take a fight, we'll be with those 5.
Yep. We have next Hellion popping on forward, but those last 2 Reapers that you were mentioning, the 4th and 5th Reapers, are heading across the map. And then we head straight into that Marine production, because you're not going to be banking the entire game on just pressuring with Hellions and Reapers. There is a hard transitionary point, and you could try and get some damage done, but this is definitely not a matchup usually made on the Hellions and Reapers. Is maybe some advantage you can garner. It's very, very tough to just end the game unless you truly are able to just out-micro your opponent. He isn't going to be able to find one of those opportunities, though. Cyclone taking quite a bit of damage. The supply depots do raise in time, but it looks like all of the mules, the fresh mules on the low ground, are going to be in a bit of danger. He does manage to keep them alive with the second Cyclone popping, though.
Yeah, good decisive decision-making from Dream. He says immediately, I can't fight this, get safe. And then immediately says, but I should be able to push it back still, right? Like, if you get the jump on me, I'm in trouble, but if I get the jump on you, I could be okay. And that's really important, because if he just hides up the high ground a second or two longer, like you were trying to say, right? You were ready for those mules to die, right? And I was too, because they should have died, but Dream was so quick to come back down and say, nuh-uh, not this time. Definitely made a big difference. Just going to be seeing our Marines off to the side. Well, here's the medevac from Cure, so talk about keeping up the pressure. It's just been pressure all the time, right? From the Reaper Hellion, now with the Siege Tank here and this medevac, going to look for some early add-on kills. And Dream is in a lot of trouble, and I just love the kind of speed at which Cure is playing in this game.
Yeah, Cyclone's locking on something and didn't quite catch what exactly they ended up killing over there. But this Siege Tank looks like it is going to end up falling to the Cyclones plus the auto turret over there. Still, being able to find a reactor is massive. Losing the medevac in exchange for it, though, not ideal.
Yeah, losing the medevac is... This was looking really good for Cure, but then he lost the medevac and obviously everything else as well. And now it just feels a little bit too expensive. You're down a couple of workers still, actually. The army supplies are similar. I mean, I've got to say, just really good defense from Dream, right? Again, love what he did decisively before, and he was decisive here again. He said, right, I got to get rid of this tank. Auto turret, get my Cyclones there. And it was just getting there so quickly, which allowed him to have a lock-on available to get onto the medevac too, and to clean that up in the end as well.
Well, behind all this, we are going to see those command centers being added on. So third bases are going to be in the cards for both these players, as I think you would expect after all the little skirmishes have reduced their army supplies by quite a bit. And we are going to be getting into just a vastly expanding Terran arsenal now. It's going to be a lot more about getting those siege tanks in the right positions, complementing them, it looks like, with that Bioforce as Stim starts up for both of these players, and just trying to be in the know. Having that air superiority also going to be a really big factor, as I do like we already see a bit of the decision for both these players to start already adding on a handful of those Vikings.
Gonna give him the Dream having a little bit of a look to see what he can do. Obviously, it's so scary. He's got 3 Ravens. Now, the counterattack of the Reapers will be nice and will get some damage done. But let's see if it dissuades Dream of him doing something across the map, because while the army supplies are even, that doesn't necessarily matter when the Ravens can just offset it completely. Looks like he'll just go auto-turreting. I mean, that's SCV's building structures. That's Stim that's going to go down. And SCVs, as they run away, actually, are going to put themselves in turret range. Yeah, there goes Stim. I wouldn't mind taking the attack lab down the factory if we had... all the turrets don't have the HP to do so, but that would have been nice. I mean, he actually does the same amount of damage as he took, plus he cancels Stim. Big lead for Dream.
Yeah, Tech Lab actually still not even starting back up just yet, so that is going to be a really big delay there as finally the Tech Lab starts back up, but that's got to be at least almost a 2-minute delay now compared to where Dream's Stim is going to end up being. So fantastic, and that really just buys you so much time and space, right? You can be a little bit greedier knowing that your opponent is just not going to actually be able to effectively attack into your Stim Marines with unstim Marines.
Yeah, it definitely gives you kind of position on the map as well. I mean, there's a lot to be said, obviously, about tank lines and so on, but if Dream wants to, he can move around the map a lot more than Kua can right now, so that will make something of a difference. We do see this Hellion trying to dart in as well. The last of the early game units really being used up now. We've got a Cyclone left over, so I mean, that's still okay, but it's also getting to the point where the Cyclones aren't that great either. They're a bit more kind of just cannon fodder at the moment, as Kua still going to try and be the aggressor here, which, considering no Stim, I'm surprised about. Now, it just might be the surprise factor, but there's enough Ravens, I believe, here to actually just take this fight for Dream as well. He'll drop all the turrets down, so the tanks will be active. Will Dream continue forward into the tanks? He'll go a bit further forward. He gets rid of one of them. So a couple remain, and they're not really in range of much apart from maybe that topside gas, so this might be okay. Dream losing a couple of Vikings, however. He's on a work the lead still. We'll lose a bit of gas mine. That does have an impact, of course, in a very gas-heavy matchup. But for the most part, he's going to stop the initial kind of strength of this attack.
Yeah, what's also interesting is we do see some of the reinforcements streaming across the map as our wonderful observer, Mapu, showing us that siege tank stopping in the center as it almost got misrallied. Redirect, and he's going to try and reinforce this, but at the same time, Dream comes in to try and break the hold. Finds quite a few of those units, and I don't know that this army gets back home safely, so they just try and trade the best they can, but even the best they can is not necessarily going to be the ideal trade there for Cure.
Yeah, nice from Dream to get on that before any reinforcements got there, just take advantage of that army, because he took a good fight before, right? It makes sense that he should have been able to get into a good position, and he absolutely got himself into a good position, of course, right? So nicely done, nicely handled, and Dream just going to take that supply lead. That's all his army supply in his favor. I believe he has combat shields finished now, so that will still be an advantage he holds for a little bit, although he's missing the armory for a little bit. So no 2-2, although I'm actually not sure if Kira has an armory to start 2-2 either, right? So those are things which are, you know, pretty good questions, because if he had an armory, okay, he does have an armory, it's just not started. Kira could be taking an upgrade lead, and that might be something he can work with later, but now he isn't. It allows Dream to get kind of back into it from his mistake, and just means that's one advantage Kira doesn't take that maybe he could have.
Yeah, it's going to be an awkward situation here because Cure is still going to be playing a little bit further from behind. It's just that now the Stim delay has been turned into an army supply, you know, being a little bit lower and potentially having lost some of those siege tanks, so being a bit behind on that count, losing a lot of the air superiority and the Ravens and whatnot as well. I think that Dream kept, yeah, he kept a couple of those Ravens alive, as well as even a Cyclone actually being kept alive is really nice. But Dream looking to be the one to get aggressive this time. They both scan each other at the exact same moment and just kind of having a little bit of a sense that, yeah, something's got to be happening right here. And it's a good thing that they both identify, because if either one of these players are catching each other in siege with armies this large, things can escalate really quickly.
Oh, absolutely they can. A couple tank shots on the high ground there will do well to just keep Dream away. Fourth base has been established on both sides. Q is just a little later to get over there, as he is in a few different ways right now, you know, upgrades and just a little bit of production here and there. In general, once again, Dream has got that lead. Yeah, it's not as substantial as that lead we saw in the first game, but it is that little bit of an edge. This is the kind of lead which disappears much faster and is absolutely much more kind of playable as Q. I mean, you can see with the Sensor Towers going up, this game begins drawing out, and as soon as they both get maxed, Q just needs to take like one reasonable fight, and then he's going to have about the same bank as Dream as well, and this is pretty much evened out.
Yeah, no, there is still that little upgrade lead that you were talking about earlier. Dream should have, I want to say, based on the little bars, it looks like maybe a 20-30 second window or something where he can try and abuse the fact that he is going to have 2-2 His opponent is not quite going to have those finished up just yet. So we'll see if Dream can force an engagement. He is getting closer and closer to those upgrades finishing, but it looks like the army for Cure entirely stims up with just those 2 medevacs to heal him on up. But he really believed that there was going to be a fight right there. Ends up not happening, so needs a little bit of time to heal back up and make sure he doesn't just get, you know, one shot by the siege shanks now.
That's really nice, actually, because I feel like Dream, if he like panic sieges there, then Kyo gets the jump on the fight, right? And then that's when he's going to kill a bunch of tanks right away. But Dream didn't fall for it, he just walked back instead. They both, by the way, added 2 small starports at the exact same time, so they both basically at the same time instinctively feel, right, this is this kind of game now, where it's going to slow down a lot. We're taking bases, sense towers are coming up. We're not going to, we're not going to break each other with Marine Tank. This is going to become an air war. They both need to get a Viking lead, and with a Viking lead, you get Libs, and with Libs, you push back tank lines, and this is a great start to that for Dream. Getting rid of a few Vikings of Cure is just going to make it that much tougher to catch up.
Absolutely, and you can just tell who really feels a bit more in charge in this game, just based on the fact that Dream is the one that is pressuring. Dream is the one who has been out on the map and really kind of threatening positions for Cure this entire time so far. And Cure is basically just playing the responsive game. He's been doing a good job with it, especially the sensor towers, of course, are going to be helping him out. He goes for a big stim forward, trying to find the army as he saw the sensor tower movement of Dream's army. Not going to be able to find anything, but it's tough. It's scary when you are the one on the defensive over here, because you really feel like you're one small mistake away from being cornered out of one of your bases.
Oh, absolutely. It's always nice just to be on the map as Dream, because the opportunity is there. And I always like to talk about opportunity in TVT because, well, hold that thought. Because if you're on the map, the opportunities arise to take fights if you want to. Oh, Q's going to stem forward into tank range, maybe believing he could have got forward there. What's big is he completely resets the air control, though, so Dream loses a lot of his air units. That's a big loss. We've just been talking about how important that is. And now Kira, he's actually going to continue forward, get rid of the last tank. And he's building Liberators too. He knows what he can do right now. He knows he can push back siege tank lines, and that was a lot for Dream to give up on. Yeah, I like being on the map because it gives you the opportunity to kind of see holes in your opponent and jump, make jumping moves, and that kind of felt like Dream thought he had one. But Kira said, no, not at all. Actually, this time, that was a bad call for me. That was a bad read.
Cure definitely going to be happy with those exchanges for the most part. Oh, even finds the medevacs and is going to have all these Marines over here. But I'm not going to lie, Cure really likes stimming up his entire army.
Yeah, those Marines could do with a little bit more than just a medevac healing. They could do with a
Is it one medevac actually? Is it just 1 or 2 medevacs? There's 4 medevacs out on the map for him, but
and they're drained as well.
Oh yeah, that is going to make things a little bit tougher. He's going to need a little bit of time, and that actually is going to be time Dream will really appreciate, because he is down a bit of army supply right now. And Kier was out on the map with some of the attacks on the potential on the left-hand side, but well, since that army still needs some help healing up, not really a whole lot it can do right now.
Viking counts obviously become important again. Kira did build a couple of Liberators, so you will use these actually just to harass at the moment. But he's gone straight back into Raven production. You can see Dream adds on 2 more starports, so they're both going to keep on doubling down into the Sky units here, basically. And dealing with these libs might be slightly annoying, but nothing else is going on at the same time, so there should be a little bit of lost mine time. Good quick reaction from Dream. Sword flying in. Now, obviously, you just send a Viking or 2 over there, clean that out, get your SCVs back to mining, and away you go.
Yeah, one small thing that we haven't really talked about, we talked a lot about the infantry upgrades and whatnot, but we do see this minor little thing that Dream was actually going for some more of those ship weapon upgrades, I think, or the vehicle weapons, sorry. Getting the +2 weapons versus just the +1. I don't even think it's starting up for Cure, but hold that thought as we do have Liberators starting to make their way forward. Cure really able to just bully his way on in just because he has the air superiority, or at least had it earlier on, but the anti-armor missile plus now the reinforcing Vikings makes this a little bit more of a contested fight.
Yeah, Cure has the upgrade lead on the Vikings, but I kind of liked what we did there as Dream, right? We used the Raven abilities on the Vikings to try and offset the difference and to give him a chance. Obviously, you had to target down the libs first. They were a big threat. If you don't get rid of the libs and you lose the Viking fight, you keep getting pushed back, and then you're in a lot of trouble. So it was kind of cool. He did what he needed to offset the difference, but then he had to give up a bit just to be able to be safe. And now here we are continuing on as the center tower and the center goes down. Vikings on Vikings. Starting to fight each other. A couple of Ravens up in the sky and a couple more tanks pressing forward too, as these other tanks will siege up, and these Marines running in from Q are going to take a whole bunch of damage. Marine's going to fight back from Dream. He's got a good position on the right side. He'll get so many of those tanks so quickly, but boy, there are a lot of tanks over on the left. I believe he dropped a last second Matrix on the right, but he really needed it on the left, or more of these backward tanks. as Kyo will not be broken on his position. And Dream just kind of needs to get up to like enough Ravens or some Liberators or something to start breaking this down. I mean, right now he's kind of doing it with the Viking count here and just having vision versus Kyo not scanning.
Yeah, it felt like it was redeeming moments at the end of the fight there for Dream, but the beginning of the fight, absolutely Kyo catching Dream a little bit off guard there with a lot of those siege tanks on siege. And well, Vikings really got some good work to do, and well, especially not only with the Viking count for Kyo being dwindled, but now the medevacs actually become also another target. And we have absolutely seen quite a few stims over here from Kyo. Here comes another one, and that is going to be one that he regrets maybe moving into all of those siege tanks. Siege, I'm not sure that those Marines even got a shot off.
Yeah, that was good control on the Vikings as well, and they just keep on slaying Ravens at the moment. Great, efficient fight from Dream. Picks up so many of those important air units, pulls his SCVs in to immediately start repairing his own. And that's obviously great to see. Look at the resources lost is great. Just shows that Dream has been trading well. Obviously, Kyo holds his position in the center, but Dream still holds 5 bases. Okay, Kyo stretches out to the bottom left for base number 6, but it's not really that important yet. It's not mining yet. Dream's fine on 5, and to be fair, the position Kyo has doesn't stop him taking his own top right, and he's actually going bottom left himself. So feels like Dream's getting into a lot of controlling positions in this game right now, and really starting to push the issue a little bit. Just hanging out with his Vikings and really sort of saying, hey, look, you know, I'm the guy with maybe a bit more of an opportunity here. More matrixes, more tank kills. We'll have to cancel top right though.
Yeah, canceling top right is going to be a little bit of a tough one. I would love if he actually rebuilt that sensor tower he had lost earlier on, because I think that top right-hand side is going to be a little bit more vulnerable if he is looking to try and expand in multiple directions right now. But man, these Vikings picking off yet another one of these Ravens. The Thor are going to be adding in quite a bit of splash damage. You no longer want to Viking flower your Vikings there.
Yeah, don't clump those guys up, because it ain't going to be pretty if you do. You can just see, obviously, we're completely maxed out across the board. A little bit of a worker difference means that Dream has less workers, but more army supply on the map at any given time. That's such a minor thing, though. So much of this more so comes down to position and the 5 or 6 army supply difference, right? So, well, 10 army supply difference, but same idea. Upgrades as well. Kind of continue nicely for Dream. You know, he's playing into +2 ship weapons now, so he's finally going to be catching up there, but he does have the vehicle weapon lead, so little differences across the board. More Ravens pouring out, and this TVT just continues to extend across the map, and we're going to have a lot of contest in the bottom left very soon, because both players' fresh 6 bases are down there. Yeah. And obviously that shouldn't really last for very long. The moment that Sense Tower goes up from Dream and he realizes Kyo is bottom left, I imagine some sort of unit squad will move down there to make some plays.
That's going to be really funny, too, because that does then beg the question. You only have so many units, and you need to position them well against your opponent. Do you send a large force to the bottom left, or do you think it's just really going to only be small little forces or skirmishes and about controlling the center, which I want to say, but it looks like Kyo is taking total dominant control of the center. And Dream just goes for, I can only describe it as a counterattack, because he knew that Kyo's army was there, and he just avoids it.
Yeah, I don't think Dream was expecting Kyo to be able to launch his attack so quickly. Dream is just making a beeline for the main base. You have to. You got to get rid of the production. Both players are going for each other's production. You know what? If you're just going to sit back and do nothing for 20 minutes each, well, they didn't really do nothing, but best thing you can do, stop base trading, right? That's going to make it exciting and fun. And it's interesting because I don't think Dream was in a position where he needed to make a play like this. Whenever you do something like this, it makes the game a lot more volatile, and it does feel like Dream allowed this to happen, whereas it really should have been Kyo maybe trying to be the one to make it happen, because it felt like he wasn't getting as much done.
You know, I'm definitely with you in a lot of those regards, but I look at the unit count right now, and I think it's really interesting to think about a base trade in this situation where you have even-ish Viking counts, but 11 Ravens for Dream, 4 Ravens for Kyo. I'm just imagining the firepower that those Ravens can have and just the longevity they can have. But look at that missile turret outlord. That missile turret army that is positioned, backed up by siege tanks, backed up by some SCVs ready to repair. That is actually a lot of really great foresight there from Kyo.
Yeah, and Dream's army's just locked in. He has like 2 medevacs on the map, so he could slowly evacuate, but Kyo would be kind of silly just to let that happen. And you can just see that Kyo's already got time to start rebuilding the bottom left. Dream's going to try and set us up over here, but Dream hasn't got any other units on the map apparently, right? Like he just has these units in the bottom right, whereas Kyo's continuing to deal damage. Dream's kind of done dealing damage, so Dream's in a bit of trouble, and I just don't think moving across the map was obviously the call, and just like I say, it makes it so much more volatile than it ever needed to be. Crazy choices. Let's see if he can pull this back, though. I mean, it's still not done. He just has to slowly work his way forward here. If he can push out of this, maybe the Ravens can obviously take such a good fight that it does start swinging in Dream's favor again.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, the missile turrets are almost all gone. And actually, I actually really like this decision. Kure just evacuates because he knows the missile turrets are what were preventing the Vikings and Ravens from moving forward. But can he actually escape out of here safely?
Yeah, there's a lot of Marines. One of the things Dream has is the Marine advantage, at least over here. Kure has more Marines overall, but they're just not with this part of the army. Ravens obviously hanging now. We're going to get a couple more kills. Dream definitely having a better few moments now, finding extra bases, and now he's on the map. Maybe he could go topside and clean up the army over there. He just needs to start protecting some more of his infrastructure. I mean, it's tough to decide where you want to go.
What production actually exists right now for Dream? Because I feel like he's been losing so many of his unit producing structures right now. It looks like there are still 4 factories out on the map right now. I think that's going to be one of the big things, as well as a couple of those barracks. And Dream is remaking additional barracks, but 2 of these factories are going to be going down. Those units coming out of there are not going to be very useful. And a lot of Dream's production is even also in the air. He's getting supply blocked as well. This is going to make things to be a very awkward situation, but finding a lot of high-value target units over there, even getting the Thor, is going to be very nice for Dream.
As this game settles down, though, Dream has so much money, right? He's got 3K, 2K, and he's already rebuilt a bunch of production. He's got a lot more orbitals left alive as well, I believe. It's hard to keep track of everything. He has 7 orbitals against...
And 1 supply depot.
There's no orbitals, in fact, from Kure. He has no scans.
Oh my god, that is going to be a major problem. Most of the buildings in the bottom left must be supply depots.
Kure's stuck. Oh. Now Kure's got the opposite effect, right? He had Dream stuck in the bottom right, but Kure's got a whole bunch stuck in the top left. This was an attempted planetary. That gets denied. I believe the base down from here is still mining on the far right side from Kure. Is that base mining? Yeah, a little bit. Obviously, a couple tanks there will start to stop that. You can't really run into the planetary, though.
I think it's still better mining for Dream, though, and Dream has the superior army that's all together and isn't trapped inside your opponent's old main base. The Vikings are running over the missile turrets as well, trying to look for a fight over here. They're trying to gun down as many of these buildings as possible. Gonna be able to find an orbital, but that's, what, 1 of 7?
Yeah, it's not a huge deal. And now we're actually going to see Vikings taking on Vikings. Obviously, big fight right now. Interference Matrix's anti-armor missile. Oh, Kure just has so much supply stuck in that top left, and there really is no way out unless he gets medevacs, but how is he going to get medevacs right now? Kure's up by about 6 Vikings, but he's got 0 Ravens, and the efficiency of 10 Ravens should just win this unless it all happens too quickly for the Ravens to get energy back. Stims continue to go down.
I almost wonder if Interference Matrix would make sense in this situation on the Vikings, as well as that anti-armor missile, just to add in a bit of extra DPS. Those auto turrets also may be able to play an impact, but you have to get so close. He's gonna try and go for it. Throws out a couple of auto turrets. The Vikings starting to micro a little bit further back. They take care of a lot of those Ravens, but the Marines able to join forces with those Vikings. Is Dream starting to break on through, or are those siege tanks gonna be the hard line wall that says, no, you can't move any further forward? Kure still has 12 Vikings.
Yeah, he's going to get rid of another couple tanks. 1 spawned, 1 was siege. We're going to see the attempted breakout over here, so these tanks will try and hold the line. These Marines are such low HP, but they will get enough done to break out. So Kure gets more units on the map. On the bottom side, the Viking count is huge from Kure, and he's continuing to pick off Ravens now. We need to get rid of the planetary so the Marines can be a little bit more effective over here. Kure is mass preparing. He's got more money in the bank right now. We've got to scan down the left-hand side to make sure we've got vision. And right now, that is going the way of Kure, though. He's just picking off tanks. Over here, Kure is going to find Dream on siege. SCVs have to pull in, but more goes down, and that's the value of freeing up those units in the top left corner. It's chaos across the map as we stem forward, and we get a bunch of Vikings, too.
Absolutely massive. Both these players starting to lose their unit producing structures, starting to lose some of their very few remaining mining bases at this point. 7 Vikings still remain on the map here for Kure, but the siege tank counts have heavily dwindled. The Marine count down to just 8 now for Kure versus the 33 of Dream, but Dream needs to be able to find a way to use these Marines. He's basically now up against a hard wall where he has only 1 place left to go, and that's into a line of siege tanks. There's no way these Marines can do that by themselves.
Yeah, but I think he's gonna deny the bottom side, and then he's just gonna be able to mine more, and he's gonna have more tanks producing. He's got 3 coming in at a time, and Kure knows he's got to go right now. Tournament life on the line. He tries to bust on through, but his tanks are gone. Target fire from Dream is perfect. The SCV is trying to help, but it ain't enough, and Dream is gonna go to the playoffs of Katowice as he pushes through. Kure has nothing left. 1 planetary fortress, but that will die to the tanks, and Dream is gonna do it. Break the losing streak, take down Kure. go to the round of 12.
GG Dream take